breaking news from CBS 13.
We all know that there are people out there that are violent and commit violent crimes. But these animals walked in and shot children at a children's birthday party.
Breaking news tonight, we are getting our first look at that banquet hall where a mass shooting took place in Stockton, killing 4 people, leaving 11 others hurt. 3 of the victims killed are children. You can see birthday party balloons inside that crime scene almost 24 hours after the shooting broke out. Good evening, I'm Steve Large. Here's what we are learning right now. Within the past hour, the San Joaquin County Sheriff said there could be multiple suspects in this mass shooting. Guns were found on the roof of the banquet hall where this happened that may or may not be related to this particular shooting. We know 4 people were killed, including 3 children, ages 8, 9, and 14 years old, as well as a 21-year-old. The sheriff would not confirm this was gang-related, despite the mayor saying it was. Now, the shooting at the banquet hall on Lucille Avenue just before 6 last night, investigators believe that more than 100 people were inside this particular party when those shots went off. We do have team coverage across San Joaquin County right now. Let's start with your reporter covering Stockton, Carmela Karcher in French Camp. And Carmela, the sheriff just spoke with some important updates. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Steve. Now, the San Joaquin County Sheriff just wrapped his press conference up about a half hour ago, updating the community on what new information they've gathered about this mass shooting that happened here in Stockton last night. Now, like as you just mentioned, this all happened at around 6 p.m. yesterday, where the sheriff believes multiple gunmen opened fire at a child's birthday party. 15 people were shot. 4 have since died. Ages are 8, 9, 14, and 21 years old. Now, 5 people were arrested last night by the Stockton Police Department, but the sheriff says he cannot confirm if this was related to the incident. There were also multiple cars that were towed last night, as well as multiple firearms seized that were found on the roof. But again, unknown if this was related to the shooting. But the main message the sheriff wants to get out to the community is that this was an isolated incident.
We're confident that this was not a random act. They walked into this area and was probably looking for somebody in particular. Why they did that, what they're part of, who they are, we don't know. But this was not somebody who was unacquainted with them. We don't believe it was not something where the rest of the public has to fear. This wasn't just some terrorist type attack where they walked in and just wanted to kill people. So we're not gonna say whether it's gang related or not until we have all the facts in front of us.
Now, again, this was an isolated incident, and again, that he is not going to confirm if this was a gang-related incident, but he did say that the investigation is still in its very early stages, about 21 hours in, so he's urging the community to come forward with any information.
Carmela, I wanted to ask you, it was interesting and I think notable that the sheriff was asking for the public's help with information. At the same time, he did not release any suspect descriptions, saying there could have been one or multiple shooters. So were you able to read into that at all, that whether they feel like they have good information on who these suspects are?
Yeah, and so he did mention that. He was saying that they have not going to release any of the description of the suspects because it's still in the very early stages, again, only 21 hours in. But they did say that if they were going to put out a description, that they will do that once they get more information, or they might not do that if they already know what the suspects look like and who they are.
Keeping things close to the vest right now. We know that the Sheriff's Department working with the FBI on this in their investigation as well. All right, Carmela Karcher live at French Camp for us tonight. The community coming together to honor the victims in this mass shooting. Brady Halblab, you see standing there near the shooting scene with a very emotional day on the streets of Stockton, right, Brady?
Yes, Steve, obviously a very emotional day for a lot of the people that were here. And where I'm standing right now is just where that vigil took place. It wrapped up about an hour ago. And we're actually just about a couple hundred yards from where that shooting actually took place. But dozens of people gathered here today. If you can take a look at some of the video that we shot from earlier today from this vigil, you can see people were crying, they were praying, they were hugging each other. It was led by several different pastors from several different congregations, all with the same sentiment and the same voice, saying that this kind of violence needs to stop. And the fact that this was involving children was a main theme and a main aspect of why this is so shocking to many of the people that were here today, and praying for also the people that are in the hospital and praying for the families of these children, of course. And that was the main thing. It was about coming together and not only praying, but also saying that this violence needs to stop, and not just to talk about it, to be about it. And we spoke to one of the pastors who spoke today. If we can bring that sound up, let's take a listen.
We can find a way to work together in love to begin to break the barriers that is destroying our community. Or we can make a difference. We can make a difference today. We can make a difference right now. That means I don't want you to just get on my program. I don't want to just get on your program. We need to figure out what's going to work for Stockton and make a change today. Do you all hear me what I'm talking about? I want you to look around at the people that's gathered here today. People just heard about it, saw a flyer, and they showed up to stand here today. But I need us to stand tomorrow and next week and next month. Amen, to begin to speak out in regards to our community, the city of Stockton. I need us to love each other enough to where when I see you in trouble, I do something about it. I stand up. And I'm not talking about fighting and trying to tear down. How do I meet the need? How do I apply balm to the thing that's hurting? How do I apply that salve that's going to bring healing to what you need?
Strong message from that pastor right there. And Mayor Christina Fugazi was also here. She did speak here at the vigil today. And one thing that that she also spoke about earlier this afternoon when we did a separate interview with her, she said that she is in contact with the White House. She says that obviously this is not something that many mayors go through, is dealing with the aftermath of a mass shooting. She also mentioned that she is in contact with Governor Newsom and considering declaring a state of emergency so that she could have funds to be able to respond to whatever it takes with the aftermath of this mass shooting, but also to be able to bring resources here for families and to also combat gun violence. Steve.
I thought there were some really powerful messages there, and one of the things that stood out to me, and I know you were there for it in person, was not only the number of people who were there to listen, but the number of people who were there to talk as well. This thing went on for a long time. Just how many people spoke ballpark, Brady?
I would say about 8 to 9 people spoke here today. And the interesting thing was they came from all different backgrounds, all different faiths. And they all came together, and that was the special moment here. And that was one of the sentiments that that one pastor spoke with me after she spoke today. It was the fact that it doesn't matter the background or what faith you're from or what side of town you're from, but it was all about coming together and working towards a common goal, which is ending gun violence, senseless gun violence.
And we're starting to see that phrase, Stockton strong, out there tonight. All right, Brady Halbleib live in Stockton for us on that part of this story. And another vigil for the victims just wrapping up at the Central United Methodist Church in Stockton. That's where we find your reporter, Tori Apodaca. And Tori, you just spoke with the aunt of one of the victims who was killed. What did she have to say?
That's right, Steve. Just unimaginable pain. We just moments ago spoke with the aunt of the 21-year-old victim. She says his name was Susano. He was part of her very large family. She says that he was actually a second nephew, and she was truly just shocked when she got that text from her son today, hearing about what happened, the shooting last night at that banquet hall, and that's really why she showed up to this vigil today at this church here in Stockton to try and just find some hope in the midst of all of this. You can see some of the video from that. She spoke out during it, just saying, hey, you know, I need to lean on you guys during this time right now. I need prayer. I just need peace, hope. And that's really what was just preached during this vigil. About 30 or so members of this church all coming together, really just talking about how they need to be the light in the midst of just extreme darkness, calling this act just evil, taking them back even to the Cleveland school shooting, unimaginable unimaginable how someone could act like this in a setting where there's children, a children's birthday party, as we've learned, and that aunt just kind of giving the space for her family right now to really process what they're going through. That 21-year-old who was one of the 4 victims in this, among the 8, 9, and 14-year-old who were also shot and killed. Here is what she had to say when we spoke with her.
He's a good kid, and he went to this, celebration for a friend of his. It was his friend's daughter, I believe. So I don't really know too much about him at all, but it's a good family.
Yeah, you heard it right there. Just they're a good family, and that's what they were doing last night, celebrating more family, more friends. That aunt, the one you just heard from, Patricia, is her name, and she said that she also had another family member, a niece, who was at that birthday party, who happened to be in the restroom. She had a toddler with her, and they were in the restroom as those gunshots rang out, and they just, of course, stayed inside there, and thankfully they were not injured. But as we know, 15 people were wounded in this, 4 people shot dead. She is asking for the Stockton community to really come together in this and to come forward. Anyone who has any information to just bring justice to not just her and the loved ones that were impacted in this, but this community, as they say that this type of violence will not be tolerated here.
Wow, a terrifying situation for those trapped in that bathroom, but also a situation where they were saved from the bullets that were flying in that banquet hall. I want to ask you about the victim. The aunt said that Susano, her nephew, died. Did she say anything about Susano's life? Anything that you could share with us?
Steve, she didn't say much, and that's because she does come from such a large family. She says over the years they have had those big family gatherings, but as everyone has grown older, they kind of have their own separate families now, their own children that they now, celebrate the holidays with. But she says that she remembers him, as in her words, as a good kid. He was just 21, so pretty young in the grand scheme of things, and really just trying to give that family their time to heal right now, is what she says, before she fully, reaches out and kind of checks in fully with them. But definitely just her heart and prayers with everyone that was impacted by this act of violence.
So the aunt identifying the 21-year-old as Susano. We know there was a 8, 9, and 14-year-old killed as well. Okay, thanks for that. Tori Apodaca live tonight in Stockton. And we are just getting started here at 5. Coming up,